Well, hello again everybody. I just thought I'd make this video to explain something that I did recently where in among my rants, my most recent one that I made, I removed it today after only making it yesterday, and it regarded a guy who made a rather sweeping statement along the lines of basically all British bikes were crap. The whole lot, no question. And what I did was I responded to his remark, and then I also actually took a video showing what he'd put in his comment and called him out for it. And a little later he surprised me actually by making another comment and saying that actually he'd sort of over exaggerated things in order to sort of make his case. And I thought, well, that was a bit of a strange thing to do and not something I would do, but in a way it was a bit of a climb down. And so I thought today, well, what I'd do, seeing as I actually sort of called him out and you could sort of see his name and everything, or his name on YouTube at any rate, I removed the video anyway because I thought, well, at least he'd sort of climbed down to a point, so I thought I'd do likewise. But what really got my goat was the fact that he'd called all British motorbikes crap. And you get this sort of blanket dismissal of British bikes from people, and oh yeah, they're all crap and whatever. And actually, when you sort of think about it, what a sweeping statement. And have they actually experienced every British bike and ridden every British bike? I've experienced lots of them. I've certainly not experienced all of them. Some are better than others, and some can be crap. But we'll come to why in a moment. But also, I'd like to point out that I've got nothing against Japanese bikes. I've even got a few of my own. I've got a Honda CB500T. There's a bike with a terrible reputation for you, and I've had to rebuild the engine a few times, I can tell you, in the 60,000 miles that I've done on that machine. But it's an enjoyable bike, I like it. They're not everybody's cup of tea. Lots of people will tell you they're crap, but actually they're not. Now then, the other Japanese bikes I got at the moment, by the way, there's a little Suzuki 200 GT200 X5, had one when I was 17, great bike, great fun, sounds great, and a Suzuki T250 Hustler that I'm hoping to tidy up and get on the road in the near future. So I've got nothing against Japanese bikes. I've even got one of the Japanese bikes that were regarded as crap. But anyway, let's not digress too much. British bikes and being crap. And this guy that got my goat the other day, one of his remarks was that he'd done some road testing for a magazine in his country, and he had to ride a Triumph T140 for a week, and if he went up to 80 kilometres an hour, not miles an hour, kilometres an hour, 50 miles an hour if you like, that bike nearly shook itself to bits. Well, if it did, it wasn't set up right and going right. I know that because I've worked on a few and ridden a few here, and they can be seen in some of my videos if you search for Triumph T140. And I've actually been a rather naughty boy on a couple of them, and probably been up to about 90 miles an hour on them. But don't tell the law, don't tell Mr. Plod. And to be honest, they felt fine at those sort of speeds. They rode fine. I wasn't getting shaken to pieces, bits weren't falling off the bike. It rode well, nice and stable, handled well. Or I should say they rode well, because there was a few of them that I did that sort of speed on. And certainly if you got one that's only doing 50 miles an hour and it feels like it's shaking itself to bits, well, there's a problem, because they weren't made like that. Even in the Merredin Cooperative's dying days. Now, all this sort of stuff, and a guy that came into the workshop a couple of years ago now, actually, a former friend, I was working on a BSA Starfire at the time, and he walked in to see what was going on, and sort of, he made the comment, well, they were all crap anyway, weren't they? You know, absolute rubbish, those things. And that, again, got me sort of worked up, and I said, no, they weren't. I said, they weren't all like that. I said, the badly set up ones probably were, but they can be good bikes. And he left with his tail between his legs, and that was the last time he visited me anyway, sadly. But just these sweeping remarks, oh, they were all rubbish, weren't they? Yeah, dismiss the whole lot of them, they were all crap. Well, perhaps towards the late 70s, when the T140s were being made. Meriden was in its dying days. They had probably people who wondered whether they were going to have money to put food on the table next week putting those bikes together, so probably quite a few preoccupied souls there, and perhaps some little bits and pieces got through the net and weren't done quite as well as they should have been perhaps on some of them, but by and large they worked on a product they believed in and they wanted to work on it. It was outdated, but you had things like that awful bike magazine from the 1970s. Now I remember buying that magazine when I was in my sort of mid going into late teens, in the late 1970s probably, and I bought them mainly because of the Ogri cartoons and those adverts with the ladies draped over the Italian motorbikes as well. But of course we don't see things like that anymore. But time moves on. But back in those days, Bike magazine really slated anything that the British made, and there wasn't much left by then. You probably had perhaps the Norton Commando hanging by a thread through NVT, and the Triumphs being made at Meriden in the Workers' Cooperative, and that was about your lot. But Bike magazine, they laid into them. Talk about kick somebody when they're down, and it was all hip and trendy to do that, and brown-nosed the Japanese bikes, of course. You know, they certainly helped kill off the British industry if it needed any help to be killed off, and I just thought that was all rather sad actually, and I gave up on that magazine shortly afterwards. I didn't like it, and I'll accept that there are British bikes around with some terrible things wrong with them, and they could be described as bloody awful, but I'll almost put money on it not being the case when they were brand new, and that it's probably since they've been through people's hands and been adjusted and repaired, whatever you want to call it. And a prime example, I'm going to come up with a few here, and let's go back to the Triumph T140 and the T120 units as well. Basically any singles and twins with points ignition that could be converted to electronic. So probably got Norton Commandos, BSA A65s, all those sort of things fall into this category. And the classic is when they're fitted with an electronic ignition, and you get a sort of rough guide to set the timing up, and then really what you've got to do, there's no other way, you've got to get the strobe on it and line the pointer up with the mark at full advance. And I've seen quite a few BSAs and Triumphs from the 60s and 70s come in here needing checking over, you know, a few jobs, doing valve clearances, just check the timing, balance the carbs, that sort of thing. And I found time after time after time the ignition timing's been over advanced by perhaps 5 or even as much as 8 degrees. And I realised that there was a bit of a pattern forming, mainly with these electronic ignition equipped machines, although it can happen with the points setup as well if it's timed by strobe rather than static. And that is when you're setting the timing up by strobe, obviously you've got to have the engine running and you've got your strobe pointing at the rotor and you're waiting for the line to come and line up with the pointer. Now I think what happens is a lot of people do this and they don't rev the engine high enough when they're doing it, and they perhaps rev the engine to, I don't know, maybe 2.5 or 3,000 RPM. They adjust things until the advance line comes up and lines up with the pointer. Great stuff, that's it, the timing's set. No, it isn't, because what tends to happen when I strobe a bike, I'll rev it up to 4.5, maybe 5,000, and you'd be surprised after 3,000 or 3,500 sometimes that line can still move up. Now if it's been set to coincide with the pointer at 2.5 or 3,000 RPM, by the time you get it up to 4.5 it's moved away further and more advanced. And I have honestly seen so many bikes like that. And then I think what happens then is they get the dreaded pinking and things like that, maybe running a bit hot, whatever. So the next thing they think, oh, we got the timing right, must be the carburation. I know, I'll lift the needles, I'll put bigger main jets in. You got the timing wrong and you don't even know. The next thing is of course you're drifting further and further away from the original specs, because now you've gone into the carburettor and you're trying to get more fuel in and everything to perhaps get rid of this pinking or whatever you've got going on. And all of a sudden it becomes a bad bike. This is a load of crap, I can't get this thing going properly. Is this what they were like? Oh, they were rubbish, I'm going to go and buy a Honda. And I think that is the root cause of a lot of it, and that is just one example, the timing. But the other is Royal Enfield Crusaders and Continental GTs and the likes, the 250 singles. Now there's a bike, some of them that have come here, and I've worked on a lot of those, some of them have been just about ready to kill the rider. Some have come only having 2 gears and a neutral perhaps. There are so many things that you can get wrong with them if you don't know what you're doing with them. And of course, best thing to do with them is just dismiss them as crap, innit? You know, because I can't get it working, they're a load of rubbish, I'll get rid of it and I'll buy a Honda or I'll buy a Suzuki or whatever. Well, I've made over 1,600 videos, mostly about motorbikes to date, working on them in the workshop and riding them before and after working on them. And some of the before videos are quite horrendous, the way the bikes behave, or don't. But usually I get them to a point where I try and get them as good as I'm able to, and I'd like to sort of think that I get them as good as if it was my bike, I'd be happy with it. And the transformations you can get, and I will put my hands up, the way that some of them have come in, I would agree they are crap. But that is not how they were made or designed or how they were originally. They've become crap by people perhaps messing with them or trying to fix them who haven't really known what they're doing with them, and they've actually helped make them worse. And then the next logical move is, oh, it's a pile of crap, I'll trade it in, I'll get a Honda, oh, they're rubbish, they are, and whatever. As an aside, the Japanese bikes, one of the worst things about them, I found, was those crosshead screws that hold all the side casings and things on the engines. Now, I don't know what they used in the factories to tighten those screws, but you try getting them undone when you're the first one undoing them. And you won't shift them with a screwdriver. Get the impact driver out, you might get them undone, or you might chew the crosshead, the crosshead out the screw. And then maybe the chisel, the hammer and chisel comes out then, or whatever you've got, or drill. Anyway, they're removed one way or another, and then the next logical step is, oh, they were crap, we'll put Allen bolts in. You put Allen bolts in, you're screwing them into aluminium that's not much harder than cheese. Yeah, the Japanese made very soft aluminium, very close tolerances and good specs and everything, but the materials were very soft. Now you try tightening up an Allen bolt and you'll get it a lot tighter than you'll get a screw with a screwdriver, and the next thing you're looking at stripped threads. So the Japanese bikes aren't perfect either, but I just thought I'd use this opportunity, and that guy's remarks that he sort of backed down from and everything, and the fact that I sort of scrapped the video, my rant about it, I felt a little bad about that in the end actually, but that prompted me to make this video just to sort of speak up in defence of some of the British bikes and actually sort of try and explain that no, really, they're not crap. And I think a lot of people who would spout that they are crap might actually experience one, ride one, or see my videos even perhaps, and maybe just say to themselves, even if in public they'd still dismiss them as being crap, they might think in their own minds, actually, they're not that bad after all. And if I have helped get that across, and let's not forget all the bikes made sort of prior to, during especially the war and afterwards, sort of conveying people to and from work and to social events and whatever. I mean, they weren't falling by the wayside left, right and centre. We did just about come out on top during and after the Second World War, so those machines played a big part. They must have been, you know, up to a certain standard at least, and I doubt very much that they were complete crap. Anyway, before I turn this into babbling on and on and on, I think I've covered everything I wanted to say, and if anybody is still watching, well, thank you for watching, and I just thought I'd like to share that with everyone. Thank you.